Hello, hello.
Welcome to the weekly Lunch and Learn with Chamber. We'll get started in a few minutes. You know that, like 5 minutes right after the hour. We'll start right then. How's everybody doing? Anybody got some major accomplishments they want to share? I'm sorry we failed with the music again this week.
I have something I want to share.
Share away.
So yesterday we did the live and a lot of people came in to join and celebrate an amazing launch that Nonprofit Plug is doing, which we may talk about later. But the distinct difference between the individuals who were on our live last night and the individuals that are joining us today is they've taken action. So everybody last night, we were going over like a bunch of stuff, right? And they were like, oh, well, God, I don't know where to start, or can I start, or do I need money, or I don't even know about my idea, or even if I had an idea, I don't know how to execute it, or if it's even reasonable. And I'm like, tomorrow, 1 o'clock, show up. Like, have the conversations with other people in the room or who are having the conversations.
Yep.
And then it made me realize and I use this word, what a rich community this is, you know, and not just money, but, you know, ethically, I mean, intentionality, etc. Like everybody here is here to, you know, put rubber to the road. And it was like a completely different conversation between last night for people who haven't yet taken action, and then people who are joining us here taking action. And we're just like, it's free, just show up. Yeah. You know. And so I pray some of the people that are joining us today were in fact people on the live last night, because it was so many people that tuned in. But it was just a really nice reminder that those of you who join us and us doing this too, I also stated that you guys hold us accountable and force us to level up our skill sets, our intentionality, you know, our results, our deliverables. So I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that. And we've got some new faces today. And I see some clients of ours on here today. Paul, what is up? It's so good to see your face. He's getting over there comfy. I see him smiling. Paul has been with us for a few years. So Paul, I'm so glad you're joining us, because these are definitely going to be good for you, and especially as you grow and develop your nonprofit. So I'm so happy to see your face on here. Oh, is it not letting you unmute? Oh, sorry. Okay, I'll give you a chance at the end to say hi, but I can see your face and I can see your smile, so that totally does it for me. Okay, let me get the PowerPoint up today. I'm sorry, everyone. We have failed again with the music. I swear, next week, right, Amber? Next week, we're going to have music. Okay. Come on, computer. Let's go.
So you're about to launch your PowerPoint.
Okay, and I can't even, Zoom is always in my way when I'm trying to get my screen to work. All right, everybody. Welcome to today's Lunch and Learn I'm Dr. Sharon, the Nonprofit Plug. We've got Amber Anthony, the strategy specialist. You already know, we all love to joke. We are Chamber. We are talking about grant readiness today. And I just wanted to clarify and give my little elephant disclosure that a lot of you have talked to me like I am not a fan of grants. However, they can be amazing other opportunities of fundings. Grants are great, but they should not be relied upon. But we are focusing on grants today because everybody wants to know how to be grant ready and how to get grants. So we're going to focus on it. But I just want everyone to know, and we'll touch on this again at the end. This is not the only source of revenue for your organization. Okay, so let me just kind of dive in. This is what we're going to cover today. The importance of grants for nonprofits, understanding grant readiness, assessing your grant readiness, building a strong organizational infrastructure. So that means ensuring that you have the proper setup for your nonprofit in a business sense. So that way you're ready for grants, financial management, all that good kind of stuff. Do you have a compelling mission and vision? Alex has got some great comments that she'll mention on that. By the way, I don't think I've ever really officially introduced Alex. Alex is the nonprofit plug grant writer. We do have in-house grant writing, capacity building, funding services. This woman, number one, she can write her ass off. Second of all, she has been winning grants left and right for nonprofit plug clients, like over 100K in 1 month alone. And she knows what it takes to be ready for all types of funding opportunities, not just grants. We're talking sponsorships, in-kind donations, solicitations, like everything. So that beautiful blonde smiler down there, that is Alex. She will become your best friend if you want her to. So keep that in mind if you're getting that. So of course, Alex, we really love you. So she'll make comments throughout this whole thing too, because she actually is in grant applications. Identifying grant opportunities, that just means grant research, effective grant proposal writing, budgeting for grant proposals. Amber's going to hammer that shit into your heads, because that budgeting is probably just as important as, actually, it's probably one of the most important components of grant writing is a proper budget, a good budget, a budget that makes sense. My favorite out of the whole list is talking about engaging with funders and partners, and we'll go over that. And then, of course, monitoring and reporting on grant outcomes. As you guys know, Amber and I like to keep this super informal. So put your questions in the chat box. Josie will monitor that. Raise your hand. We'll ask questions at any point in time. Don't wait till the end. If you got a question, just ask us. All right. Okay. So let's get clear on what does grant readiness actually mean. So grant readiness refers to your nonprofit organization's preparedness to pursue and secure grant funding. This means that involves having the necessary structures, policies, resources to meet all the requirements and expectations of potential funders. When you're applying for a grant, you're applying to that grant offers specific requirements. Grant ready organizations understand its missions, objectives, and the needs it addresses with strong organizational structure and a strong structure, capable leadership, sound financial management. You've heard us drill on that for like the past several weeks. I think since the day we started Lunch and Learn, which if you guys can believe it, we're already in like the 3rd month of Lunch and Learns. This is just like wild to me. June, July, August. This is so cool. Okay. And then the grants that you need, are you in alignment? Is your mission in alignment with relevant grant opportunities? And can you articulate your grant impact through compelling proposals? So grant readiness also encompasses effective monitoring, evaluation, reporting, because sometimes some of these grants you do have to report back. Otherwise you can lose your funding or have to give the funding back. That's the worst. Anyone ever given you $1 and then you got to give it back? Like that shit sucks. So overall, we're aiming to position the nonprofit for success in securing grants to support the mission and initiatives of your organization. Okay, are we clear and we're all on the same page of what grant readiness means? I think I'm seeing like some faces go like this. So for the faces that I can't see. Okay, cool. Now, assessing your nonprofit's readiness. We're really going to be covering this throughout the entire hour today. But specifically, when we're talking about assessing your nonprofit's readiness, these are checklists that you can use to evaluate your organization's readiness. We're going to drop a grant readiness checklist, literally like, I think I talked about this last week. Like I'm obsessed with, I know, I just saw Amber get excited. I love being able to check a box. Like I'll make a box just to check a box. I'm one of those people. And I know for sure Amber is too. So we have one of those for you guys. We have an actual checklist. We'll drop it in the private Facebook group. If you're not in our private Facebook group, find me on Facebook. I'm the only Sharon Elephant. Find me on Facebook and I will add you to the private Facebook group. We put the recordings in there, templates, downloadables, guidebooks, like all sorts of really cool shit. So if you're not in our private Facebook group, find me on Facebook. I'll add you. We'll put today's grant readiness assessment checklist in that Facebook group for you guys.
Tatiana's asking a question. She wants
sure,
to
go ahead.
know if this is the same list you give your clients.
Yes, is that Tatiana Jackson that's asking? Oh, it sure is. Yes,
Yes.
Tatiana, it is. It's the same one we give the clients, so you should already have a copy of that. I'm probably going to do another version of it to clean it up for early stage nonprofits. The grant list that we do give to our current clients that are startup nonprofits, it's such a comprehensive grant checklist that it includes things that you maybe not you may not be looking at for maybe 3-5 years down the road. But I like to give that comprehensive list because I want you guys to know, like, down the road in 2-3 years, these are the kind of things that you're going to need to have in order to be grant ready. Any other questions, Josie?
No, nope,
Okay.
nope, nope.
Okay, so we'll go through that checklist. We'll drop it in the Facebook group. It'll also get emailed out to you guys too. So for everyone that was registered today, you'll also get a copy by email. So this is what we're going to be covering throughout all of today. So now we're going to kind of dive into some of that stuff that's on the checklist, but we're highlighting the most important parts for you guys to be grant ready. Okay, so here's what we mean when we're talking about organizational infrastructure. Do you guys have governance? That means, do you have a board? Do you have a board of directors? Do you have an executive director? Do you have a director of operations? You know, these are the kind of things that funders are looking at. And not only are they looking to see if you have that, they want to see who those people are. Like, literally, they want to see it, like, with their eyes. They want to see a photo sometimes of that person and a bio. So for those of you, and I see Alex's head going, yep, because I've had to submit that shit on some grants. So that's really, really important, even for you brand new nonprofits, those of you who have just started your 501c3. Keep this in mind as you start to prepare your nonprofit and you get grant ready. Bios for all your board members, job descriptions for your board members. Last week, we dropped a board guide, a board of directors guidebook. So that has definitions of all of that. So be sure you're looking at that. And then they want to see the diversity of the board, who's on the board, race, gender, age, like all that good stuff. So they want to see photos, they want to see bios. Okay, so that's governance and leadership. Financial management. And Amber, maybe you can touch on this and the importance of a financial management infrastructure, not so much the budgets, because we're going to get into that, but on the financial management infrastructure, like as simple as having QuickBooks.
As simple as having QuickBooks, or being able to run your reports immediately and have the peace of mind that the reports are accurate. So those of you who have actually taken the steps, for example, to get your QuickBooks, maybe you're managing it yourself, maybe you're paying a bookkeeper to manage it. Oftentimes, your chart of accounts may not be in order to where it's reporting exactly what you're actually doing or trying to convey. Another thing too is, just like anything, softwares are only good as the people who are using and managing it. So there are often times that softwares have missing information, that hasn't been synced at all. So we all love the fact now that QuickBooks now syncs and it's supposed to be seamless. And again, not the case. It's only good as the people who are using and managing it, down to the, the particular details. Again, in the accounting industry, everybody has a different way of doing and reporting things. So not to override what your accounting professional is saying, but please question. And then when you get the reports, read them. Look, if it doesn't make sense to you, it doesn't make sense to your board, and it doesn't make sense to the grant reader or writer, straight up. Mm-hmm. So it's just really, getting the information in a way that makes perfect sense to convey that it's accurate, and that also it's telling the story that you want to tell, telling the accurate story that is actually occurring, and then realizing that it's all based on perception, right, of other parties, of how they're viewing it. So making sure that you're able to present it in different lenses. And the only way that is possible is based on the integrity of the data and how you're tracking the data. And, we keep building on our financial literacy skills and our financial, infrastructure. So maybe when we're ready for another numbers lunch and learn, you know, we can show you, hey, these books of this particular client were impeccable in that everything was tracked, everything was reconciled. But what were the next steps to take their reporting to a different level, not only for themselves internally, but also for what they're trying to project externally. And, you know, we just had a recent question recently about they wanted to know exactly how much in the bank account was restricted or unrestricted, right? So we put in additional layers now to track those complexities so they have an immediate view of that type of thing. So again, we share these nuances with you that are down the road, but we like to put it on your radar. And again, like Sharon was saying, you know, step one, have your financials, have your complete financials. So in other words, let's say this grant pops up today. It's August 2nd. And, you know, I'm in the accounting profession, and most accountants won't have July reconciled until the 10th. That's usually just standard operating procedure. But let's say your July was phenomenal in more ways than one, and there was a lot of activity that you would like to showcase. Well, do you know when your stuff is being reconciled? Or do you have the capacity to call your accountant and say, hey, can you make me a priority because this grant closes on the 5th and I want to give all July's information? So year to date through June just isn't going to cut it. So do you kind of see my points on why it's important for you to have a really solid hand in it? Because July could have been a make or break with, you know, your activity that you want to showcase that should be on the grant application. But unless you are cognizant of this, when you're sending over your P&L and your balance sheet, even though, for instance, you're saying, please give me the report year to date, that doesn't mean that the information in that report is in fact complete, reconciled, and exactly the way you want to present it to the grant writer, who then has to use it, you know, in what they do to present it. So I hope that makes sense.
Any questions on kind of the overall organizational infrastructure, your governance, which is your board, leadership, which is like your executive director, directors of operations, that kind of stuff, financial management? I want to pause there because that might be where there will be some initial questions.
Sharon, can we hear from Alex? Because I want to hear from the end user about the different reports she gets.
Yeah, let's put Alex on the spot.
Alex, tell us the good, the bad, the ugly, and what you want from us.
All right, sounds good. And sorry if it's laggy. It's just that it could be an internet thing, but I can hear you all perfectly. So I would just say that for the early stage nonprofits, it's really important to track everything like on an Excel or whatever you're using, maybe Google Sheets because it's mobile friendly, and then also be aware of what your fiscal year is. That often correlates with the calendar year. So like January 1st to the end of the year. But for things like government entities, they tend to be like July 1st is the beginning of their fiscal. So it just really differs there. So definitely know your fiscal year and keep track of everything as much as you can. And yeah, so more information, the better, usually. For me.
And I'll say too, if you are currently a nonprofit plug client, your fiscal year will always be 12/31. I do that just because like my brain can't handle knowing a whole bunch of different, like having to remember a bunch of different stuff. And usually your bylaws, if you're a nonprofit that's on here today and you're not a client of ours, check your bylaws. It'll say in the bylaws when your calendar year end is. And then sometimes it'll say on your IRS paperwork if you're unsure.
And so Alex, just another thing. So when you get these financial documents, obviously you have a lot of experience. So if you see things that maybe aren't in alignment or you have questions, so how often do you have to circle back to get additional clarity or additional confirmation? Or when it hits your lap, is that the source document you're working off of?
Yeah, that's a great question. So most of the time with grants, you're using past organizational budgets more as a information source. And then we craft a program or project budget based on that. So it can be a little more flexible. I do know like some startup nonprofits that are growing really quickly, it can be hard to get accurate projections because you might not know year over year, you know, if your growth is going to continue as exponentially as it has. But that's something we can definitely help organizations with. I try like, you know, making them as specific as possible, including each program. So it's really easy to navigate. And does that answer your question?
I mean, because again, like the thing that we always preach, and you know, because you join us all the time, is just giving everybody in the room the lens of from how it starts with them to how it gets to us, to how it gets to you, to how it gets to the end user, to how it gets to the public, you know, all the way to the end for federal reporting, et cetera. So they can have that visibility through and they can hear from the horse's mouth, you know, these are our challenges if this wasn't taken care of when the ball was in your court. So what could be corrected there to ensure, you know, transparency, you know, that everybody's on the same page and everybody is assessing the information the way it should be, or how many times we have to make inferences or when we have to make conclusions when there isn't enough information, and how we can mitigate that, either lack of communication, because a lot of times lack of communication through this process could result in a no, right? So a lot of things could be circumvented if we catch things at the front end and communicate them effectively, like over communication.
And also, Paul, you asked a really good question in the chat that I want to mention it for everyone on the group, because like a lot of nonprofits, sometimes we have a lot of money moving in and out, and sometimes we have zero money moving out. So he asked, what if you don't have money in the bank? How do you provide audits? So it's not necessarily us providing an audit to anybody. What happens is the audits want to look at your financial reports. They're not necessarily going to go physically look in your bank account, but they may, depending on the audit, they may require your bank statement. So I'm just going to pick on Paul because Paul, I can see your face and you asked the question and you're a client of mine. So I'm so sorry, but you get to be our special one today. So Paul, we did his startup, and then we also handle his yearly compliance. Since Paul doesn't use QuickBooks to manage his nonprofit, which he doesn't necessarily need to, we asked him to provide all 12 months of 2022 bank statements. From those bank statements, they were loaded into Excel, and we were able to put together financial reports, a P&L, aka a statement of activity, and balance sheets, so that we could see what his money story was telling us over the past year, whether it was significant amounts coming in and out or little amounts coming in and out or no money in the bank account. It really doesn't matter. But that's how people will look at audits, is they'll look at your financial reports. And for nonprofits where we're submitting in California specifically, we needed all of Paul's bank statements so that we could provide the financial reports to the state of California. And it's not that we give California all your bank statements and all that. It's a summary of money coming in and money coming out. That was a really good question. Thank you for asking that, Paul.
Okay, we have more questions here.
Okay.
So Tracy's asking, what would determine your fiscal year to not be January 1st to December?
So that's
to not be January 1st to December.
Yeah, good
for
question,
nonprofit.
Tracy. Right. So and then I can see tonight. Yeah, I can see her question too. So I'll get that one. So good question. So typically when you apply for your 501c3 status with the IRS, in that application, you're determining your calendar year for your nonprofit organization. If you have no idea, you can look on your previous tax statements filed with the IRS. It'll have your tax year ending on there. Same for California. And then if you create your own bylaws, you would create your own, determine your own fiscal year. And we always recommend to just do December 31st. Some nonprofits and some, it's a very for-profit-y thing to do, but a lot of nonprofits do fiscal years, which is ending in end of June. But I don't recommend that in the nonprofit sector. I don't recommend it. It doesn't align with grants. It makes hard to pull reports. It doesn't align with IRS tax filings. And especially if you're in California and you have to extra report on stuff to the Attorney General, it's just not fun. And then the other question asks, when an audit includes a spreadsheet, Would an audit include a spreadsheet or a budget tracker that shows where the dollars are going in addition to the bank statements? It absolutely can, Amber. I'm not sure if you want to touch on financial audits, if you're aware with that one.
Yeah, and so the bigger your organization, the more complex your organization, the more they require, the more scrutiny. And so once you get past a certain dollar amount, it actually requires third-party audits that are just a standard, not from a bad, not because you've been called to justify anything that you've done, but just to triple verify through a third uninterested party. And so quite a few nonprofits, especially those that receive a lot of government funding, that's just a standard operating procedure that they have to comply with annually. And when that happens, step one, the general ledger has to be reconciled to the bank statements. They don't necessarily, and then they review the financial reports. They don't necessarily ask for the bank statements at that point, but they do want a CPA signing off stating that that everything's up to date and that it has been reconciled against the bank statements. And from an accounting or CPA standpoint, if that individual is not working in your organization and is not managing your books on a regular basis as your CFO or COO, for example, or VP of finance or what have you, that's really the best they can do. Those are the two ways that they can say, look, here's what's either in the Excel document or in QuickBooks, because at the end of the day, QuickBooks is just a fancy Excel database. Okay. So here's what's in the database, and here's what's been tracked by the organization. And then from there, these are their bank statements and they tie in. So that's really what a third-party audit CPA person says. But from somebody who is a forensic auditor and somebody who has actually represented individuals in real audits, not in the good way, but in the bad way, it's a way deeper dive than that. But to your point, that is step one in compliance.
Yep. And just real quickly to touch on that, a lot of these times financial audits won't even happen until you're over 250K or even higher in that in revenues for your organization. So don't stress on these yet, guys, until you're really filling out those kind of grant applications. So I want to touch, because we're already halfway through today and we have so much left to cover. When we're referring to developing policies and procedures, so this stays under your organizational infrastructure, that's like conflict of interest policy, diversity policies, things in HR. Depending on the grant, they'll ask for some of those. If you're a client of Nonprofit Plug, your bylaws have your conflict of interest policy in your bylaws. So we like to make it easy. And then tonight, just to answer your last question there, and then we'll move on to the next one. Absolutely, you can pay yourself a salary for the work that you do for the nonprofit and others. Now, your role on your board is not compensated, but if you hold the role of executive director or director of operations or, something, one of those titles that's kind of managing day-to-day stuff, absolutely, you can have a salary. I've not ever reviewed your bylaws, but our bylaws do include a clause in there that does allow for board members to hold other roles within the organization. So I hope that answers your question for you. Okay, we're going to jump on because the best of the best stuff for being grant ready is kind of way down the line. So I'm going to touch on some of these a little bit faster because some of them are a little bit self-explanatory. So making sure, and that should say crafting a compelling mission and vision, not rafting. Although rafting does work because you kind of want it to like smooth down the river, but that should say crafting a compelling mission and vision. And with this one, and Alex, you had given me some great comments on this one earlier, but not only should you have a clear mission and vision, but you should also understand, depending on the grant, who is your target market and who are you serving? So having a clear mission and vision for your organization is imperative, but even more so is understanding who your target market is. So your mission and vision for your nonprofit is not going to change, but you may have a purpose statement specific to a program. If you're applying for a grant that is for a specific portion of your organization, unless you're doing an overall grant for your overall organization, then that's a little bit different. And Kylie, yes, board members never receive a salary. That is a hard rule, never. It is not industry standard. Board members never receive a salary, but board members can hold a role within the organization. Okay. I was able to figure out, you guys, how to get the chat box open while the other screens are open and have it going. So some of the questions I do see. Okay, so we're going to move on from making sure you have a clear mission and vision statement and understand who your target market is. That one I feel is a little bit more self-explanatory, and depending on the grant you're applying to, you may have a purpose statement that's more customized. Okay, perfect. And then, all right, we'll touch on this one quick too. Identifying grant opportunities. So how do you find grant opportunities? How do you search for these? What do you know what's available? So exploring various sources of funding, government, foundations, corporate donors, even things like Southern California Edison, Chick-fil-A, Nike, Adidas, any organization like that, any company is a potential for a sponsorship. I know some people on here that got a Nike grant. I think it was it Nike? Yeah. Congratulations, Paul. He just received a grant from Nike. And so they're out here. So I look at everything with a dollar sign now. Gas stations, clothing stores, grocery stores, all of these are potentials for funding opportunities. Now, so you can go as simple as just Googling, or there's grant databases, and I'm going to show you a grant database that we use here at the Nonprofit Plug. Okay, any questions on answering about grant opportunities? I'm going to go into some specific examples and show you guys kind of what we use, and I'll have Alex touch on that too. But in general, any questions on identifying grant opportunities? Okay, so here's exactly what I'm talking about. At the Nonprofit Plug, when you get a membership with us, in your membership portal on our website, when you log in, you get free access to Grant Station. It is a grant research database, but even more than that, it's actually has the whole ability to find, build, write, and help you win a grant. Now, winning a grant means, did you have a good grant proposal? And we'll get into that. So through Grant Station, through our Nonprofit Plug portal, you can find new opportunities in our searchable database. You can build your strategic planning tools and get your checklist. You can write proposals in the Grant Station, and then you would get notified through those. So it's really cool. I'm going to show you guys an example of kind of what it looks like when you actually log into Grant Station. Okay. You guys, can you see this? So in the membership portal, I'm logged into the Nonprofit Plug membership portal. This is a paid service. So if folks are interested in that, just reach out to Amber and I, and we can help you with that. So once you're logged into the membership portal, you can access Grant Station. If it would load. Okay. Oh, I got kicked out. Sorry, guys. Let me log back in. Okay, so see there, we're logged in through the portal. You get free access to Grant Station. This is so cool. This is where you can kind of get the opportunity, what kind of events are out there, grant opportunities. They've got different kinds of classes you can take. Ooh, Kylie, scaling up your community or faith-based initiatives. I know Kylie's on here. I know I saw her name. So Kylie, make a note of that for yourself. How to write and use AI. Oh my God, it even tells you how to use ChatGPT to write your grant stuff. So this is a great database that you guys can use through your membership with us. There's a whole dashboard of different reports and projects. You can search all sorts of like really cool stuff. Okay, so opportunities for all of that. We also do have in-house grant writing. If all of that was just like super overwhelming, we have some people that like to do it all themselves. Some people like to hire grant writers and manage it. You can use Grant Station with our grant writer, Alex. She does use Grant Station and a bazillion other databases to research and write grants and get the tools necessary. Let me get back the PowerPoint. So I think Tatiana, that answers your question. So you can get a membership with us and use Grant Station for free. If you use us for grant services, which we call capacity building funding services, then you can totally we use grant services for that. Oh, Kylie, I cut you out on something. Oh, Kylie, of course your service. Listen, Kylie's in Hawaii right now, so I don't even care that her service cut out because she is living in Hawaii. Kylie, what I was saying is that through Grant Station, so just remind me later, there was a course on leveraging funding for faith-based organizations. Okay. Let me get this back up and going so I can share with you guys. Yep. Okay. Covered. Yep. Faith-based funding. Got it, Kylie. Okay. So that's Grant Station kind of in its essence that we use in-house for us. Any kind of questions on that? Grant Station's pretty kind of similar to other databases. It's our favorite. I feel like it's the most intuitive to use, but this is an example for everybody on kind of what it's like to use like an actual database to search for funding opportunities. And the other cool thing that I love is they send me emails every single day of funding opportunities for like every kind of industry. We got some cool animal welfare ones the other day, the faith-based one that we just saw for Kylie, lots of cool youth development and activity ones.
Sharon, lots of comments about Grant Station, how to get more information about it. So would they do discovery call, or what is your
Yeah, I would recommend doing a discovery call with us. We'll actually put out an announcement this week for our membership. And that way, if people are interested in signing up for our membership to have free access to Grant Station among like a community of other stuff, we'll put that out this week. But you can always go to our website and book a discovery call with us if you want to learn more about it. Okay, so critical component to getting grant funding and being grant ready is being an effective grant proposal writer. This is usually where people get really kind of caught up and kind of stuck in the mix of things. This is the difficult part of grant applications and funding opportunities, because in here is where you have to sell yourself, sell your data, tell the story of your data and your impact, the narrative, your assessments, goals, objectives, outcomes, emphasizing the impact of your organization. And for just real briefly, well, it may not be brief because it's a big topic, but Alex, can you touch on the importance of collecting data and even just your recent experience with all of our clients? And like, you can't even apply to a grant without data.
Hey there, yeah, I would agree. I love to work with our nonprofit partners because everyone's so passionate about what they do, and they're out there on the ground helping people all the time, like usually 7 days a week. So I admire that so much. And one way to really capture that, I think that is a free way that I've enjoyed using in the past is Google Forms, because you're able to do that right from your phone, and they actually collect analytics pretty well. But if you need assistance on what type of metrics that you might want to be tracking, feel free to reach out to us, because we kind of know what grant funders typically ask for, so you can make sure that you're collecting the right information as well.
Any questions on the impact? Having an effective grant proposal, this is the bulk of the whole area of the grant. This is where you talk about the board members and their bios and the makeup of your board and the description of your organization and who you're impacting and how you're impacting. And or if it's a grant where you're proposing an idea, this is where you would do it here. Any questions on that? We can hang out on this one for a minute to help clarify for anyone if it's needed. Amber, you're on mute.
For a future one, do you want to show them an impact report too?
Yeah, well, we can share typically, and sometimes with nonprofits, an annual report at the end of the year is something that a lot of nonprofits produce just to share with the general community. But those are really great for using as a basis for being able to track your impact within your organization. There's no standard template for an impact report. It's really just so that you guys can have an organized area. And my favorite is Google Sheets too, like Alex has. There's softwares out there, but no point in paying for that. I like Google Sheets too. How many men do you serve? How many women do you serve? How many kids do you serve? What is the age of all of them? Are you feeding them sandwiches every day? How many dogs did you spay and neuter? That's the detail that having an effective grant proposal wants to have, that kind of detail.
And also that can be repurposed for their websites, for promotional materials,
Sure.
all that, yeah.
Tracy has a question.
Okay.
What would the average estimated cost to hire someone to write a grant proposal?
Tracy, great question. We usually recommend that you set up a discovery call with us because it's customized based on your need. Sometimes it's per grant. If it's just a one and done thing that you want a grant writer to apply to, or there's a monthly retainer options that's usually based on hours, 10 hours, 20 hours, and 30 hours. So if it's a per grant, it's customized to that grant. So if you do have something like that in mind, just schedule a call with us and we can go over that with you. But on average, it starts at if it's like a per grant, on average, it starts around $350 minimum, and that's to get it started. And then it goes into an hourly rate. That's why I say schedule a call with us so we can kind of go over that and see if there's a customized package we can do for you, or if we need to put you on a monthly retainer. And then in that case, we look at all of everything of your organization. We'll look at your organizational infrastructure, your narratives, your program descriptions, your impact data, donor solicitation letters, letters of intent, strategic partnerships, collaborations. We'll look at everything within your organization. Okay. Alex, anything I missed on this slide?
No, I think that was really well covered, so.
Okay. Okay, y'all. But we're not going to go down a rabbit hole today because we love rabbit holes. We really do, because we want everyone to understand everything. But I'm going to have y'all already know, the financial badass wizardry, kind of go over the importance of a good budget. Now, we did do a lunch and learn on budgets, just budgets alone, in that topic a couple of weeks ago. The recording for that is in the private Facebook group. Highly recommend that you watch that. But Amber, our money badass, is gonna kind of go over, the essence of a budget, what it shows, the story it tells. Let me just hand it off to you, Amber.
Yeah, so I would definitely step one, if you didn't attend that one, then definitely circle back, because we did go into detail and we did a live exercise with it, right? And so obviously when you're actually doing it and using it and it's personal to you, especially with your numbers, it makes it make more sense. But this budget is bulletproof in that when you're entering the data, not only will it make sense to you, but it also generates the percentages and also highlights the segments that need to be on your radar. So just real quick, nonprofits are held to a higher standard as a general rule. So nonprofits are expected, out of a pie of 100, that 70% of that money go to executing your mission. So the other 30% is to basically run the engine. Not the program, not the overall mission, but to run the engine. Okay. And so what we did was we took the budget and color coordinated it by green, which is your program or your mission, which all of those amounts need to hit the 70% in a perfect world. And then the other segments, that would be the engine that runs your program or mission. And those expenses should be at a 30% mark. So when you start to segment it out like that, and you realize, by the time you've paid for internet and QuickBooks and a bookkeeper, and before you even get to paying yourself, and I get really excited about the fact that so many people are definitely wanting to be compensated for your work and contribution within the nonprofit, within your nonprofit. And that is 100% possible when you have enough money coming in. So, because when you're reporting, you have to show your compensation. You have to put your name and your compensation and the percentage of how it affects the organization. That is on the nonprofit tax return. It is that transparent. It is that invasive. So that's why we teach you to monitor it in your infancy stage. That's why when it comes to salaries for directors and people who have a stake in its overall success and may have a personal stake in potentially abusing the power within the nonprofit organization, that's why we have it in red. Because we want you to be aware that if your goal at the end of the day is to grab 200, 250K for being the CEO of your nonprofit, and let me tell you, I have done the accounting, the books, and the audits for nonprofits that do have CEOs, CFOs, COOs, and program directors that make multi-six figures. That is not unreasonable. And it is totally okay when you are bringing in that kind of money. So with that said, if you're trying to get to 200K to be the CEO of your nonprofit, you can get there, but you have to go out and go find 2 million. And so that's where your skill set, that's what you really have to nurture, is this skill set of bringing the money in, because it's all based on percentages. And at the end of the day, if you are that superstar for your organization and you can go out and garner 2, 3, 4, 5 million, and you can keep your data tidy and you can communicate your impact, then you know what? You deserve that $250,000 salary. Nobody's going to question it. And guess what? On your larger charities, because all their financials are transparent. So on a Frisky Friday night, please feel free to click through, because I do. Okay, because I'm curious too, because success leaves clues. So if you want to know how to get to 250, 300, 450, shoot me an email and I will send you over a 990 of your favorite charity where the CEO garners that type of wage. And then you have to ask yourself, is this a badass CEO? Is this CEO figuring out how to get 90 million a year? You get where I'm going with this? So it's all about collecting the data, building your skill set, being transparent, having impact. And from there, the money follows, the impact follows. But you, the founder, you, the CEO of your nonprofit, you have to be great. You have to be great, and you have to be able to communicate that effectively.
And the reason why Amber's really highlighting salaries is because when you're applying for grant applications, a lot of times they're going to look at that. But what's really critical is ensuring the alignment between the budget and the narrative of the grant proposal. So if the grant is asking about overall infrastructure and salary information, it's critical that those components are there. And to touch on Amber's point, and that it makes sense. So she's highlighting that whole 70%, 30% thing, because it's really important that your budget makes sense. For example, there's a great foundation in Los Angeles. I'm blanking on the name of it. They're not very active right now anyway. They'll fund an organization, but if you're asking for $100,000 and your budget is only around 50K, they're not going to fund you 100K. They're going to fund you probably 15 or 25K. They really want to see in your budget. They want to see the screenshot we put on the screen of the revenues and expenses. They want to see the breakdown. Who are your top 5 funders? Where is donations coming in from? Program service expenses, other expenses that you have for the organization. If you're applying for a grant that's to cover an after-school tutoring program, how many kids are in the program? How much does it cost per head? How much food are you buying? They want to see it that broken down. Now, they may not want to see an overall budget for your nonprofit. It may be only for a program. So you're going to need to have program budgets. So these are the kind of things that you need to be aware of when you're making sure that your organization is grant ready. And that second bullet really states that allocating funds appropriately to support the proposed project or budget. What that's saying is, does your budget align with your mission and narrative? They want to see the alignment. Does your budget align and make sense with what your narrative and your grant proposal says? Are what you asking for matches in the budget? Does your budget expenses match what you're asking for or what you've previously spent on a project? Any questions on budgeting for grant proposals? I highly, highly, highly recommend you go back and watch our lunch and learn on budgets. That was a couple weeks ago. Any questions on this one? Okay. So that slide probably was one of the most important slides, but you know, I'm a little bit biased here. Here's why this is the most important slide of the day. As you all know, applying for grants is never a guarantee. And in fact, most of the time, it's a complete rejection. Let me tell you, I've had like 20 years of rejection in the grant world, but the wins outweigh all those rejections, including Alex's month of over 100K in 1 month. The reason why this is the most important slide, engaging with funders and partners. This is the most important slide because grants always have a program manager at the grant office. The foundation always has an executive director, a program officer, a lead grant manager. You should make that person your best effing friend. I was going to say the real whole F word, but then I realized I was in a professional scene, but I kind of got in the moment. That person needs to be your best effing friend. Building meaningful relationships with potential funders and partners. This means that when you apply to the grant and you submit your grant application and they already know you, oh my God, they're going to totally pull your application out because I already know that person. Let me guess, I'm probably, Paul, you probably knew someone within Nike and that's how you got that grant, or you just randomly applied? God damn it, man, you're a bad example. Okay, good job, Paul. Okay, Paul was a bad example because that was really good. That must have meant you wrote a really good proposal. Okay, so but if you ask Paul, he's always hearing me harping on like build strategic partnerships. Politrick, this is why engaging with funders and partners gives you that much more up on getting that grant opportunity. So I'm always like, when Alex is applying for grants for clients of ours, I'm always telling her, go find out who the person at that foundation or that company or whoever is that's in charge of like receiving the applications, go find out who that person is and then go introduce yourself, get on Zoom. Let's go make besties with them. Let me tell you, I'm gonna make besties with someone if I'm gonna try and get $100,000 from them. Okay, I'm sure that sparked like a ton of questions. Maybe it didn't, but this is the most important slide. If you want to be successful in specifically the grant funding opportunity area, your relationships and cultivating those relationships with the people that are handing out the money are critical. Okay, let's see here if there's any questions. Josie, I was able to pull up the chat box, so let me see. Okay, Miana, where can we watch previous lunch and learns? At our private Facebook group. You can watch them in there. Just find me on Facebook, Sharon Elephant. Find me on Facebook and I'll add you to the private Facebook group. Kylie, should we budget for bare bones in the beginning of a nonprofit or where we'd like to be, say, in the first year? Maybe this is answered in your budget lunch and learn. I don't know if we specifically answer that question in our lunch and learn, but for you, because I also know where you guys are at, you literally are just about to get your 501c3 status. You should be creating a budget that is now your actual, and you should be projecting. So if I go back to that other slide, can you guys, does it show on there? It shows 2023, 24, and 25. Depending on the grant application, it might not necessarily ask you guys for projected budgets. It could, it just depends on what you guys are applying for. But I always recommend that on hand with internally in your organization, you should have your actual budget, you should have projected budget, and you should have last year's budget. So Kylie, you won't have a last year's budget. You're going to be creating something for right now, which is more so going to be projected because you guys haven't really had quite, expenses yet. Does that answer your question? So leveraging relationships. I'll give you an example. Amber and I have been studying LinkedIn recently. LinkedIn is they call it the blue ocean. The blue ocean is this whole theory. It's like so cool. So we love theories. This is like, hopefully we don't take you down too long of a rabbit hole here because we've got a couple of minutes. I think this is pretty much my last slide. So I'll get you to the final one. So The blue ocean is this open ocean of everyone. It's clean, it's pretty, it's accessible. Red ocean is bloody, it's gross, it's everyone in there. LinkedIn is this blue ocean of professionals, of people who are other nonprofit managers and leaders, of professionals of any industry. Also, a lot of time, because of LinkedIn and the connections you make, you can reach out to people really easy. So like CEOs and things like that. Go look up a company on LinkedIn and connect with that CEO and start chatting it up with them. What's your favorite dog? Oh, you like to go get coffee? Oh, that's my favorite kind of coffee too. Build a relationship, and then that's how you can go after them for funding. Maybe you even look up that that company, and you see what are some of their like pain points as far as like, who do they align with in the community that they want to serve? And maybe you are just that person. Okay, so Kylie, that's what I figured. Okay, actual versus budget. Yep. Tatiana, what would you suggest to do to maintain those ongoing relationships? Awesome question. That just means you're checking in with them every month. Maybe you're sending them a newsletter with your impact report and sharing data. Maybe it's scheduling a Zoom or inviting them to come to your program. Tatiana, I know you're having an event coming up. If you have potential funders, you should invite them to come to your event, have them meet you in person, because I already know once they meet you in person, girl, they will love you. You are the reason why Future Wealthy Minorities is a nonprofit and why people will want to support you. So invite them to come out to your events. Paul, if you've got a youth day and you're working with the kids, invite some funders to come, hang out and hit some balls with you guys. Have them be a part of game. Maybe even you have a weekend softball or baseball event and everybody can come play and it's funders versus kids or something like that. You can absolutely use your personal LinkedIn. And actually what we learned in the LinkedIn class this week is that your personal LinkedIn is your branding and people want to support you specifically. So you should be using your personal one, but you can create a nonprofit LinkedIn page and it'll be linked, so many links to your personal one and your professional one anyway. So Kylie, for you guys, I would have your personal LinkedIn page, and then I would also have a nonprofit page for Free Life Foundation. That way people have something to reference. Okay, I'm going to skip this one because literally when you guys do get a grant, then you should be reporting on outcomes based on the grant requirements. So I just kind of want to recap real quick for everyone. Why are grants important? It helps fund your organization, but is not to be relied upon. We know what the definition of grant readiness is. Are you, as an organization at whole, do you have your mission and vision? Have you assessed yourself? Do you have a compelling mission, vision, and direct target audience and infrastructure? Are you collaborating? Have you done some grant research? Have you looked at your proposal writing? Is it invigorating? Does it make you want to support you? Engage with funders and partners. See how we put there? That's Dr. Sharon's favorite, because that's literally the best way to be successful in the grant world. Of course, monitor and report on your grant outcomes if you do get awarded a grant. And we want to encourage all of you to be proactive and prepare for grant opportunities. Get ready, stay ready. You will always be ready. Okay? We'll stay on here for a couple of minutes for open questions, but thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today for Are You Grant Ready? This is recorded, so we will share it with the world. We'll put it in the private Facebook group. Any questions? We are here for you guys. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's Wednesday. Paul, let me see if I can unmute you so I can hear you this time. Yeah.
Hi, nice
Paul,
to see you.
Paul, I'm so proud of you for getting that grant.
Thank you. I went and we had a ceremony at Nike East LA and they gave me a really cool, I don't know what you call it, recommendation. I can show it to you.
Mm-hmm.
Can you see that?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Better. So the name of Paul's nonprofit is Better Today, Better Tomorrow. He does a lot of like youth development among like everything else that supports the community. And that's awesome. I'm so
but I
proud
was
of you.
I was
When you sent me that text, I was like, oh my God.
I was a little like taken back because they said that they only had 5 people apply and they gave out 5 grants. So I was like, oh, I guess it works. Whatever.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm so proud of you. Do you finally feel like, okay, God, like the shit that I'm doing is like, I'm finally getting like some reward for my organization for it? Cause it's hard,
Totally.
right?
Yeah, it's insane. And like that's why I asked that question of like I have 10,000 in the bank, but they're asking these other grants I'm applying for, they're asking for audits and things like that. And I'm just like, I haven't spent anything, I haven't done anything. I've been,
Yeah.
so thank you for this. I think
There should be sometimes on some of those grants, you may not qualify for some grants if they're requiring an audit because you don't pay for an audit, that it's not worth it yet. Those are so expensive. So you may not qualify for some of those grants, but you can always reach out to them and say, hey, I'm not at the threshold financially for an audit, but I do produce financial reports for my organization. Can I share those? And I can always create those financial reports for you to submit. So don't worry if it says financial audits are required, which big grants, a lot of those sometimes do. Don't let that stop you.
yeah, so there's one that I'm applying for now. It's 100,000 through Foot Locker. And they're asking the one that you sent. I talked to a buddy who's a CPA and he said, just do a projected one, and just show that you have some money in the bank and just, like you said. But my question is that the grant station, is that part of my deal or is that part of, because I've been looking at your memberships just so we can have,
shoot me a text.
shoot you a text.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Of course. Thanks for coming today, Paul. I'm really glad to see you on here.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the best of the Zoom world? Ugh, I hated having to rush through some of that stuff, but like grant readiness is really like a 3-part class. I could spend like a month just talking about grant readiness, just because some of the components are each a topic on their own. Joe Escamilla, don't be on here and not say hi. Oh, maybe it wouldn't let him unmute.
I mean, public and it's loud, so we just.
Oh, okay. Okay. I appreciate that.
But
how you doing, bro?
Good. I'm running around and going camping this weekend, so getting some last minute stuff.
Good. Okay. Right.
Yeah, great information. I got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I want to see you and the wife in here every single week.
Yeah, just like damn. I mean, like we've done a lot of stuff, but I'm just like, I got a lot of work to do.
Well, I'm glad to see you on here. Have a great weekend. Okay.
Hi, Alex.
Tatiana, I see your question. Where do I find the revised version of the grant checklist? Honestly, Tatiana, you have the best version because yours includes like everything in the entire world that you need to have in order to be grant ready. But when I do produce another one, it'll be in the private Facebook group and we'll email it out. So if you're not in the private Facebook group, because I don't think you are, but find me on Facebook and I'll add you, but you actually have the nastiest comprehensive one. All right, y'all, have a fantastic rest of your Wednesday. Thank you for joining us. Find us on Facebook every Wednesday, 1 p.m. Pacific on Zoom. New topic every single week. Join us. Again, find us on Facebook. Come be a part of the private Facebook group. If you're interested in Grant Station, you can join our membership. We'll send out some information on that later this week. Otherwise, have a great week, everybody.
Hi, everyone.